This is the 2023 Kia Seltos, and it is the SX. So in Canada, we're looking at the highest available trim level that this vehicle has to offer. In this gray, it looks really nice. I kind of like the little bit of red highlights that they've got on side of the caps of the wheels though. It looks pretty unique. It's something a little bit different. Steve here, Cars with Steve. In today's video, I'm going to break down the 2023 Kia Seltos. We're going to look at what's going on with the interior, exterior styling, and a few other basics. Oh, I do want to thank Durham Kia for giving me access to this thing to shoot the video for you guys today. Check down in the description below for their contact details. But let's unpack the 2023 Seltos, figure out what this vehicle has to offer, and see if it's still worth a buy. The styling of the Seltos is nice. It's very similar to what we saw in last year's model. It's actually exactly what we saw in last year's model. But there are some nice things that are going to set each trim level apart. Like we look at the LX base, that's going to be front wheel drive or all-wheel drive as an option. 16-inch or 17-inch tire, and then we've got up to an 18-inch, so 16, 17, or 18, just depending on which trim level of the vehicle you've decided to go for. This one, because we're in the SX, has the 18-inch tires, and we're looking at all-wheel drive. Now we do have some nice rockers and moldings and things like that all along the outside of the vehicle. You can customize it that tiny little bit more. There's some pretty good aftermarket accessories that you can add on if you wanted to customize the look of it. Now that black molding that we have all along the body of the vehicle, it does follow along the front end of the bumper there. And it's kind of like mixed partway between. So we've got a little metallic highlight along the bottom part of the bumper, body color paint along the main part of the bumper there. We do have fog lamps inside of this thing, and then we've got a few different types of lights that are going to be available. So whether that's traditional halogen versus LED is going to depend on which version of the vehicle that you're in. But the lights look really nice, stretched all the way across. We've got our beautiful black grille in the front of this thing, nicely separated there. And then we've actually got this like weave texture right along part of the hood and underneath the grille. It's actually kind of neat. Now, the Seltos does have two different engine choices that are available. It's either going to be a 2-liter 4-cylinder, or you've also got the option for a 1.6-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. And this one is the 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. Power-wise, it's capable of pushing out 175 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. So pretty good performance out of an engine this size. So whether you decide to go for the regular 2-liter or the 1.6 is going to be a matter of preference. Now, if you're a fan of a little bit more power inside of your vehicles, the 1.6-liter turbo, definitely going to be the way to go. I'd probably recommend that to the majority of people. But if it's a first car or you're just looking for something basic, just getting you from A to B, either engine will be okay. Now, unfortunately, you can't choose your engine with your trim level. It's essentially whatever trim level you're in, that's the engine that you're going to get. So the majority of the trim levels going to have just the base 2-liter with the SX Turbo, obviously having the turbocharged engine. Hopping inside, really nice look. But starting off with some door highlights on the outside here. So we've got a nice look, so a nice gloss look right along the door. You can kind of see my reflection there, which is nice. Nice metallic highlight on top of that. Moving down, we've got this like weave texture. So we've got a Bose speaker there, Bose speaker down here, but I love the textured finish of this. Like, look at the way that this pops. It's nice, it looks fantastic. Matter of preference there, I just think the overall design, the aesthetic there is kind of neat. Typical Kia styling, so we've got their basic controls for our side view mirrors, our unlock and our lock button, our window up and down. Tiny little bit of area storage there. I mean, technically for grabbing the handle to close the door, but we do have some storage along the lower part, bottle holder, whatever the case may be. Now, on the inside, we can make it a few things. So if we ever need to fill up gas, we're going to go there to make it happen. The seats themselves might be manual or power, just depending on the trim level of the vehicle that you're in. Because this is the SX Turbo, we've got this in order to bring the seat up, down. We can go forwards and backwards with it. We can adjust our backrest this way, and then we've also got 2-way lumbar support inside of it. As we move to the inside, steering wheel inside of this thing is going to be a manual adjust. Just to the left-hand side of that, a few other buttons. So this one is going to increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. This is going to be for head-up display, so we can either, let's lower you down a little bit there, I guess that's not going to work because the car's not on, but we could press this button if we wanted to either bring our head-up display up or down. We've got our auto start stop button. So that's the one when we come to a complete stop, it might kill power to the engine. We can turn our traction control system on or off. And then we've got our lane keep assist. So we've got two different ones. We've got our lane keep assist. And then on the steering wheel, we've also got the lane follow assist. So this one is going to gently nudge us back into our lane, versus this one is going to keep us perfectly balanced in our lane as we drive. So two different systems, but they are nice. We can use them in conjunction with one another if we want to. Well, this is pretty nice. And like, it's surprisingly spacious inside of this car. So 6 feet tall. I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. This is the way that I would typically drive it. And like, knee space is fantastic. Foot space is great. Up overhead, I've got about 3.5 inches of space there, which is nice. Now, we can also move the seat down a tiny little bit. I had it down pretty much all the way. So moving it down that tiny little bit, yeah, like 3.5 inches roughly of headspace there. So like 6'3", 6'4", you'll probably comfortably be able to fit inside of the Seltos. And whether you get power seats in the driver passenger side is going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. So in this one, this is the SX Turbo. So it's the highest available trim level in Canada. And it's essentially like a fully loaded vehicle. Like, there's so many amazing things about it. The headrest inside of this thing is just going to be a two-way adjust. So it's just going to be up and down. We have no option for forwards, backwards inside of this thing, unfortunately. It still is pretty nice though. But so many good things all around. Like, if we take a look, I kind of pointed out the highlights inside of the door, but some of those nice kind of matte highlight, or the glossy highlights, I should say, follow all the way throughout the center stack and down all the way through it. It's really, really nice. Now, because we're in the SX Turbo, there are some things in different parts of technology that are standard here that are just not going to be available in some of the other trim levels. There was some pretty great stuff. Like I pointed out, we've got the head-up display inside of this thing. So really, really nice that we've got that as an available option. Typical Kia styling, we've got our left turn stick. So it's not only for the turn stick side of things, but we can adjust what's going on with our running lamps. We've got our fog lamp control there. Stick on the right-hand side is going to let us control our front and our rear windshield wipers. We've got a series of different buttons and things like that all across the steering wheel. The media screen inside of the Seltos, we have two different options. So in some of the higher trims, we've got this, which is phenomenal. It's a great screen. It's got factory navigation built in, and it looks really, really sharp. But there's a downside to this screen, and that is that it only supports wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Now, if we look at the lower trim levels, slightly different screen, that one supports wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. I think they've kind of got it backwards a teeny little bit, because this thing's got a wireless charge pad. I think that it should be wireless charge pad, wireless CarPlay support. So Kia, if you're listening, make sure you update that. Like, I would love to see those wireless things in conjunction with one another. I just think it absolutely makes sense. There isn't a reason why this screen shouldn't be wireless as well, but for current owners, it is strictly a wired screen inside of the higher trims, with it being wireless in the lower trims. But if you want to walk around on how to use Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, factory navigation, things like that, check in the description for that walkthrough. But the system itself, it's very straightforward. We've got a series of different buttons right underneath the media screen for hot button presses to get into our maps, navigation settings. We've got our media, so things like our radio. We can hook up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, go over Bluetooth. If we wanted to listen to YouTube music over Bluetooth, we've got the flexibility to do that right through the screen. And I kind of have to do this. We got to turn it on. We have to do a little audio test. Like, how can you not be in this and do that? So no media on. What I'm going to do, let's turn the media on, and actually, okay. So I gotta say, incredible sound. Like, the bass inside of this song is amazing. Love the bass, love the tunes. Artist is incredible. The sound though it sounds nice, and the reason why is because this thing has an upgraded Bose sound system. So that Bose sound system available in the highest trim level of the Seltos. And if you're an audiophile, you really love the way things sound, you're probably going to want to look at the SX Turbo. And it's just the sound inside of the Bose speakers are incredible. Don't get me wrong, the one in the base Seltos is good, but you will notice the difference in the bass, just the general sound with the Bose compared to the regular speaker setup inside of the Seltos. They're still both pretty nice though. I just have to like give it one check mark for the Bose setup inside of this. It's amazing. Now across the center stack here, first thing to point out, we do have these nice metallic highlights that follow all the way throughout, even just different parts of the center stack there, so it looks fairly nice. Now we are going to be push button start inside of the vehicle, so you can see there, engine start stop. The startup animation inside of the screen looks kind of neat, but going through some of the basics of the center stack. So starting off, we do have our four-way blinkers. Down from there, we do have some climate control settings. So single zone climate control, but we can easily adjust whatever our climate's going to be on the inside. We can press this button to have the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be instead, and that's going to control the fan speed and the temperature, things like that. And moving down a little bit from there, so we do have a little storage tray right up on the top there, and that's going to be for wireless charging. So if we've got a vehicle that supports wireless charging, we will have a little indicator light that lets us know that the phone is charging. So it is kind of nice that we've got that as an available option inside of this thing. Down a little bit more, you can make it out. We've got two different power points there. So I guess, well, technically three. We've got a 12-volt power point. We've got two USB ports. So the first one is going to be just our regular USB for data. So if we're ever hooking up a phone through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, using a USB stick for MP3s, we would plug into that middle port. Then the port on the right-hand side is strictly going to be for charging up instead. There is a little storage area there. We've got a little assist handle. Dropping down, there are a series of different drive modes available. So moving throughout, we've got three different modes. So it's either going to be normal, smart, or sport mode, with each mode giving the cluster screen a little bit more of a unique look. Dropping down a little bit from there, we do have our heated seat buttons there. So you can see there, heated up, ventilated down. So if your vehicle does have the option for heated seats, actually let's get this back up into park now. So if your vehicle does have the option for heated ventilated seats, it's heated up 1, 2, 3, or ventilated down 1, 2, 3, which is kind of nice. And having these leather seats with ventilated option is really nice, especially during the summertime. There is also the option for our heated steering wheel off to the side, and moving off to the other side. So we've got a few other things that are available. We do have our all-wheel drive lock, so we can turn that on off. We've got our passenger controls for our heated ventilated seats, so we can easily adjust out there. And we've also got our downhill brake control. And the shifter, it is really nice. Like, it feels great inside of the hand. One of the fun parts about the shifter is that we do have the flexibility of jumping down into our drive mode, and we can push it over to get into our sport mode, where we can easily adjust gears out by moving the shifter up and down, which is definitely a nice thing. As we move down from there, we do have a few cup holders off to the side, so two individual ones there. Parking brake, we've got our auto hold setting. Down a little bit more, we have a little storage tray, and then we also do have our armrest, which has a little bit of storage space inside of it. We do have the auto-dimming rear view mirror available in some trim levels of the vehicle. Up overhead, we've got our tow mode, SOS mode. We've got the controls for ooh, those are nice. Love it, looks nice. So we've got our controls for our lights in that same kind of like glossy texture that we've found on the door. It actually follows through along the top of the vehicle. From there, we also have the option for a sunroof. We're gonna find it inside of this trim and some of the other trim levels of the vehicle as well. Now, it's not a huge sunroof, but I mean, it opens things up nicely. We do have the flexibility, to just vent this thing out, which is great. So if you just wanna create a nice little cross breeze, or single button press to be able to open the whole thing up. It's kind of nice. And then one cool thing, single button press in order to close it. So open, close, single button press gives a thumbs up in my books. I love it when that happens. But overall, this thing is great. We've got a nice headliner there. From here, we've got a little business card holder, vanity mirror, and the light, typical Kia styling, up over top. And then this thing is going to extend out, blocking all of the sun. Ooh, baby. Here we go. All right. This is nice. Spacing wise, I was surprised the first time I jumped into a Seltos, which was actually for the 2022 model year. And the reason why is the amount of space back here. Like, I did not think I'd be able to fit in the second row whatsoever, but I mean, I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall. I'm 6 feet and I've got plenty of knee space, good amount of foot space. Up overhead, I've got like 3.5 inches of head, like 3.5 inches of headspace there. So very similar to what you're going to find in the first row. I've got fairly broad shoulders. So could you fit 3 full-size versions of me in the second row? It'd be tight for 3 full-size versions of me, but if you've got younger kids, or I mean, if you want people to be slightly uncomfortable for a tiny little bit, it is possible. But I mean, at the same time, like spacing is actually pretty nice. But like me in the second row, it's not bad. I don't have as much headspace. Like it drops it down to about 2.5 inches or so roughly of headspace when I'm in that middle seat of the second row. But I mean, you need people in the second row and you've got that as an option. But very similar to what we saw in the first row. Nice glossy highlights along the door. We've got that same cool texture for the speaker in the second row that we saw in the first. I love the Bose speakers set up inside of this thing. It's really, really nice. Now, we do have the option for second row heated seats inside of this vehicle. So certain trim levels will have it. The SX is one of the ones that has it. So a little button there. The heated seats, strictly going to be the outboard seats. So this middle seat is never going to be heated whatsoever. You don't have the option to get that. You could throw money at Kia and they're not going to give you a middle seat that's going to be heated in the second row, unfortunately. One thing I would like to see, it would be kind of neat, is if we could somehow get the cooled seats into the second row. It's typically something you're going to find on luxury vehicles. It would be kind of neat if at a price point, this price point, or something a couple bucks more, we could get that too. It would be really neat. But here nor there, at least having heated seats in the second row is pretty dang cool. We've got pockets, just a single pocket along the passenger side behind the first row. In the armrest, just behind the driver's armrest there, we've got a little basic vent control. No climate control, just for our vents. There's a USB power point and then a little cup holder back, or little storage space, I should say, back there. We've got cup holders in a few spots. So bottle holders along the door. And then just in the second row, we've got, oh, can't get it from the bottom. Okay. We do have second row cup holders there. So it's kind of interesting. We don't have a tab or anything like that in order to pull it down. You kind of got to jam your fingers in there and then pull down in order to get access to it. But we've got 2 cup holders there, which again, pretty nice. Now, another thing, we've got all of our anchor points along the bottom of the outside seats, and then we've got our tether points behind the first row, or behind the seats on top of that. So if you need to latch on, you've got that flexibility inside of this thing, which is kind of nice. Now, outside of that, a few other things to point out, just for some basics. We've got some assist handles along both the driver and the passenger side with a clothing hook just along the driver's side of the vehicle. Up overhead, we do have, okay, cabin lights. So we can't touch the cabin light to turn it on there. We do have to just do a basic button press to turn those cabin lights on. But it is nice that we've got that control on the inside here. Like I said, I'm surprised at how spacious this thing is. Like, it's the same thing from the 2022 model, but it is really, really spacious. And like the seats are surprisingly comfortable. Got a good amount of cushion to the butt there, which is kind of nice. Very similar to what we saw in the first row. Filling up fuel inside of the Seltos is also straightforward, and I actually love the Seltos for this reason. It's locked on the outside right now, and in order to open it up, it's just on the inside. Just got to crank that, you saw that pop open, and there we go. So it's a cap system as well, so just insert your fuel hose, fill up, and you're good to go. Now, the outer door is locked. You do have the option, there are some pretty good aftermarket solutions you've got for the actual fuel cap itself that could be locked using a key. So if you're concerned of fuel theft, just know that the Seltos has you covered because the door is locked, but you can one-up it for extra security and get a lockable key for that as well. So it is nice that that is available there. When we look at fuel quality, it doesn't matter if you're in the 2-liter or the 1.6-liter turbocharged engine. Minimum manufacturer's recommendation for this thing, just regular 87 gas. So you don't need to put a premium fuel inside of this thing whatsoever. Towards the back end of the Seltos, we have a pretty nice look. I love the way that the lamps look into this nice Kia logo. I love the redesign that they did there. It just looks really sharp. And we've got a nice metallic look, feel to it. Very similar to what we're gonna find in the steering wheel, which is kind of neat. We've got our Seltos badge along the very bottom left-hand side. No badges along the right. But one cool thing, we've got our backup camera. We've also got our rear wiper. Now there's some technology you're just not going to find inside of this. We don't have any sort of rear parking system, so we're not going to get any sort of beeping as we back up, but North American safety standard, we do have our backup camera inside of this vehicle. Now, if we look at the basic design elements of the back, we've got this like weave texture, so this like honeycomb kind of look along the middle part of the rear bumper there, which is kind of neat. But we've almost got this, the way that they've cut it out, it almost looks like they were trying to go for dual exhaust, but it's a single tip exhaust and it's located just along the bottom right-hand side. And then getting inside of the trunk from the back here, so right underneath the I in Kia, we've got a little release. So we're just gonna press that to unlock, and it's a manual lift gate. So lifting up, not too difficult at all, but let's have a peek at the cargo dimensions of this thing. Now, the cargo dimensions for the Seltos are going to be showing up. So as you can see there, we do have quite a little bit of space back here, which is definitely a nice thing, like kind of surprising all at the same time. But nice amount of width. There are a few different measurements showing up, not only for the width, but also for the height. So the width, I've got one between the wells and then the max width. And then on top of that, we also have a few options for the height. And the reason why is because we do have a removable tray in the back, but we also have this removable cargo shield. So one of the benefits there is that if you've got valuables, expensive things in the trunk of the vehicle, we can hide that. Just whenever the lift gate's closed, we can see this thing's going to raise and lower as we go, and that's just because we've got these little connectors right along the side. This whole tray, if we want to, fully removable at the same time. And when we remove the rear tray there, we've got our spare tire, and it's just a mini spare tire, but it is nice that we've got that donut inside of this thing. So we've got our jack, we've got our spare tire, so if you're handy, you could change the tire yourself if you want to, or call on roadside assistance, which is available there on top of that, which is great. Well, folks, that was a look at the 2023 Kia Seltos. What did you think? Nice vehicle, fairly loaded, especially when you get into this SX trim level. Like having the head-up display is nice. All of this extra technology, I think, is fantastic. But what did you think of the ride? If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. I'm more than willing to talk you through any issues that you might be having. There are some other videos that you can check out on the Seltos, so using the cluster, figuring out how to use Smart Cruise, using the media screen. You can find all that stuff in the description. You can also find the build link for this specific one in the description on top of that. But if you enjoyed this video, thumbs up, share it with your social networks, and until I see you next time, take care.